All right, what I've done is taken most of the Montessori themes that we just spent some time talking our way through and arrayed them horizontally across the whiteboard here. Sensory materials, feedback built into it, cognition, movement, choice, all the way down to role of teacher and so forth. Now what I want to do is abstract, right, philosophically, what principles are built into the particular practices that Montessori education involves. So, for example, if we take the point about the manipulatives and all of the sensory materials that Montessori education has pride, the pink towers and so forth, the sandpapers, letters, and the point that Montessori is making is that if we want to have students learn the various abstract lessons, they need to be based on tactile, perceptual, sensory material. So on the basis of sensory material, we learn all of the abstractions. And so in philosophical terms, that is a point about empiricism. Empiricism, philosophically, right, is the position that the senses are the foundation of our knowledge, and all of the higher order learning that we do all the way up to theorizing is based on the empirical data, ultimately sensory data, right, and so forth. Now, another point about the manipulatives in the Montessori system was that the feedback was built into them. So the students, as they are trying various things out with the manipulatives in whatever project they're working on, they can learn from the materials, right, whether they are working with it correctly or not, as opposed to relying on an adult or a teacher to come and check their work and tell them if they got it right or not. And the point here philosophically then is a point about independence, that what we are doing is from day one cultivating independence of judgment, right? That I will, as the student, make up my own mind and be able to affirm in my own mind that I've got it correct or that I've made a mistake and that I need to do something different. The next point about the importance of integrating cognition and movement, right, that we learn by doing is a point about mind-body integration, right, that our minds and our bodies are not two separate things that have their own agendas and operate differently. Rather, we have mind and body, right, are integrated, right? The movement, right, of our bodies, what our physical bodies do, feeds into and sustains cognition, and cognition in turn is directive, right, of the body. And so we have a position of integrationism that's going on here. Now, the idea of all of this occurring in a prepared environment that is organized, right, that is structured, that all of the things that the children need to learn to be able to do and to understand is in the world, right, that is the school prepared by the teachers ahead of time. Here we have the idea of putting children into a cause and effect world, right, so that the world that we are putting them into is not a chaotic structure where nothing is intelligible. Rather, it's a world that they can explore, that they can figure out, and how things work, right, is in principle open to them if they explore and do the work. This emphasis on individual choice, that individuals get to choose what project they're going to work on, that children are unique and so they'll have unique interests, and so different children will be working on different things at the same time, that they get to spend as much time on the material as they need because of individual variations in differential rate, and then that students need to, of course, put their projects away at the end. All of these, broadly speaking, are point about volition, right, and the importance of volition, being able to make our own choices, free will as being a fundamental feature of human nature that we need to respect. And also all of them are points closely tied to that of individualism, right? As an individual, getting to make my own choice, right, to pursue what I am interested in, to work on it for as long as I want to do so. And then the self-responsibility that comes with that of once I'm finished with it, putting the materials away, the individual self-responsibility is built into it there. Moving on to the social points, Montessori makes a point of emphasizing respecting the student having his or her own workspace, that we don't interfere with the other child's workspace to disturb their concentration, right, and so forth. That is a proto-point about property rights. We learn to respect each person's space, right? What's properly theirs, what's properly mine. that we only, so to speak, invade the other person's space if the person willingly lets us into it. The idea that we are going to form groups spontaneously, younger children asking older children for advice, older children taking some pride in being able to teach younger children, right, what goes on here, that all of the social interactions are on a voluntary basis, right? Nobody is forced to do anything. I don't have to work in groups if I don't want to, that if I do choose to work in groups, I'm certainly free to ask people to work with me, to ask for advice and so forth, and they will voluntarily do so. And the point that Montessori insists upon is that these social groupings are not a matter of duty or obligation, but rather that they are beneficial to all of the parties who are involved in the groups, that these social transactions should be win-win. That is to say, both parties are benefiting. The point that Montessori insists upon repeatedly about everything that we do in education is not knowledge for its own sake, but that it's necessary for being able to live right in the real world, to flourish, to be successful, and so forth. That is to say, all of the points, no matter how theoretical they get, are also going to be practical. And so what we have here is a point about theory and practice, right, being integrated. Theory, practice, integration. Right? We're not just engaged in actions independent of theory, and we're not just doing theory for its own sake with no interest in practical implications. Instead, we are integrated right once again. The role of the teacher here, the teacher is not authoritarian, the teacher is not a proto-king or queen or dictator. The teacher is not the boss whom the students must obey. Instead, each individual student has his or her own goals, projects, right, and so forth, and the role of the teacher here is to be a guide. And so what we have here then is, again, a social win-win, right, that is based on, right, voluntary, right, interactions. Right? Teachers enjoy being teachers, and students enjoy learning from their teachers, right, and so forth. So it's mutually beneficial. And then the child rather comes to the student, or the child rather comes to the teacher to ask for advice or a little pointer if he or she gets stuck. And so that's a voluntary interaction here as well. And then this point where Montessori says, obviously there are safety issues, and sometimes kids being kids, the teacher does need to draw a line. What we're doing is, again, protecting rights in a proto-fashion, right? If I am doing something, I'm being naughty and I'm interfering with you, well, I am interfering within your space, right? Or I am not letting you do what you want to do. So I'm interfering with your liberty. And so respect for rights and the proper role of the teacher as a policeman in respecting our rights, right, and so forth. But for the most part, the teacher is respecting, right, the freedom, right, of each individual student to do what they want, and interferes minimally if there is some threat to the liberty or property rights of another student. And then finally here with Montessori's emphasis on her system being based on scientific pedagogy and to incorporate all of the latest knowledge from biology, from psychology, and then ongoing experimental practice in the classroom. This is abstractly an application of reason, right? We're not learning all of this on faith. We're not doing it just because that's the way it always has been done. We're not doing this just because it feels right to us and doing whatever we want to. In fact, we are able to justify the practices, demonstrate their results, and so forth. That's the aspiration anyway, but that is a point about reason. Now, this list of concepts that we have all the way along the board here are a wide variety, right, of philosophical concepts. Broadly speaking, this point here about reason, that is a point about epistemology. This point about empiricism also is a point about epistemology. The fact that we are mentioning or situating students in a cause and effect world, right? That is a metaphysical point here. Issues about volition and mind-body integration, those are points about human nature. When we are emphasizing individualism, cultivating independence, right, of judgment, respecting people's property rights, that social interactions need to be win-win. Those are points about ethics. And we also have a certain number of proto-points about politics and the social structure of the classroom, that we should be teaching respect for rights, freedoms, voluntary interactions, that social interactions should be mutually beneficial, and so forth. So altogether, what we have built into all of these Montessori practices, is, if we abstract out, is a full range of philosophical points running through the metaphysics, epistemology, human nature, ethics, and politics. And the point that I want to make in concluding, or when we wrapping up this section, since this is all situated in the context overall of a discussion of objectivist philosophy, is that all of these points down here are very much objectivist philosophical themes. And so if we look at Ayn Rand's philosophy, put that on the board here. Right, all of these points fit in, exactly right. We do live in a cause and effect world. That's her point about identity and the primacy of existence, that we learn based on sensory data that feeds into reason, that human beings have volition, that we are mind-body integrates, that ethically speaking, the important thing is cultivating rationality, independence, of judgment, social freedoms, property rights, social interactions being win-win, a broadly laissez-faire social structure, and so forth. All of that is thoroughly objectivist. And this explains why over the course of the 20th century and on into the 21st century, among people who are interested in objectivist philosophy, there's also been strong interest in Montessori education as an applied practice, and also going the other way. People who first come to Montessori education are investigating the broader philosophical framework within which Montessori education can be justified, find themselves running into objectivist philosophy on a fairly regular basis. All right, that will wrap up our discussion of objectivism as a philosophical system with its implications for education in general and its happy compatibility with Montessori education in particular.